Hi, welcome to another edition of Bringing Hope to Alzheimer's. I'm Ann Fraser, and today I wanted to talk to you about some of the signs and symptoms I started having when I first noticed that I was losing some of my cognitive abilities. So, with my family and all of the people in my life that have had Alzheimer's or some form of dementia, I was very highly in tune to it anyway, as far as, oh my gosh, I forgot where I put my keys. Do I have Alzheimer's? Things like that. And so I was pretty aware of everything. But once I really started having real trouble, the things that were happening to me were, first and foremost, was my speech. I had a lot of trouble with mixing up words or knowing. My brain knew what it wanted to say, but my mouth would not cooperate, and things would come out garbled, or they'd come out where I would all of a sudden say something that had nothing to do with what I was saying. And I can remember one time my husband and I were getting gas at Costco, and we pulled in, and I was talking about something we were going to do that day, and then all of a sudden the word duck came out of my mouth. And it had nothing to do with what we were talking about. And Mark just looked at me, and he kind of just like looked and had this puzzled look on his face. And I started laughing, and because I can be real with him. And so I just started laughing, and I said, oh my gosh, there's my brain. My brain just absolutely came out with this weird word. So it's things like that where, again, with Mark, I can be real with him. But in a social situation, when that happens, you freak out inside your head, and you can laugh at the moment, but then you freak out in your head. You're like, where did that come from? Why did that word just pop out of my head? Or that sentence? Or how did I mix those words up? And it's not just that every once in a while thing. It was happening more and more. The other thing that I will say is, the other thing that was hard was being in a group of people where other people were talking, and I was hearing them, but I could not understand what they were saying. Like, the conversation was not computing in my brain, and I could not figure out how to get into that conversation because I couldn't follow it. I couldn't follow what they were saying. And that was super, super scary, because then they ask you a question like, well, Ann, what do you think? And then you're lost, and you're like, oh, I don't know. Or you say something stupid, and sometimes you can pass it off, and sometimes you can't, and they'll look at you really funny. And so those were some of the things I was noticing. Concentration, like, I already am pretty easily like squirrel. I can squirrel really easily. I can be looking at something and concentrating on something, and somebody will come to the door, and then I completely lost all train of thought, what I was doing. But it was more than that. So for me, like, I can't ever remember people's names very easily, but that's been my whole life. Like, I remember faces like none other, but names, I cannot remember names. So that would not be a trigger that would make me go, oh my gosh, something's wrong. The last thing I will say is, there are times when like I said, I remember faces very well. There was one time in particular, I won't say where I was, but I walked up to someone and introduced myself to them and asked them who they were, and their face said it all. They looked at me and they were like, it's me. And that was terrifying. And then again, you pass it off. Like, you laugh and you're like, oh my gosh, your hair is so different today, or something. I don't know. But those are things that were indications to me that I needed to have some things checked out. So anyway, again, if you're never good at remembering numbers, and you still don't remember numbers great, or you're not good with them, that's one thing. But it's when something you've always been good at and you're not any longer, or you start having some trouble that you're like, wait a minute, this is not normal, and I'm noticing I'm doing it more often. Those could be things that you might want to just check into. And it could be even as much as stress. It could be lack of sleep. It could be you're not exercising and getting enough blood flow to your brain. I mean, there's so many things. I'm not a doctor, but I can just speak to what I've gone through. And those are things that I needed to pay attention to. And it was very good that I did because, as you know, I'm all about early detection and brain health. And that is the path that led me back to getting my brain back completely to 100% cognition. So, anyway, those are some things I wanted to share with you. People ask me a lot about that, so I just thought I would share what were the things that were happening to me that caused me to stand up and pay attention, I guess. So, anyway, hope that's helpful, and we'll talk to you next time on Bringing Hope to Alzheimer's.